At first light, the old bridge of Mostar glows pale gold above the emerald waters of the Neretva River. The stone arches seem to float in the morning mist as the first call to prayer echoes softly across the valley. Far to the north, ancient forests cover mountains that stretch unbroken toward the horizon, hiding waterfalls, abandoned fortresses, and villages older than many European nations themselves. This is Bosnia and Herzegovina, a country many people know only through memories of war. And yet hidden within these highlands is one of the most beautiful, layered, and emotionally powerful landscapes on the continent. To travel through Bosnia is to encounter a version of Europe that feels increasingly rare. The roads wind through plunging river canyons and pine-covered peaks where local life remains blissfully preserved from mass tourism. Here, centuries of Eastern and Western architecture collide seamlessly on a single street corner. Ancient stone bridges connect medieval outposts where cultures, religions, and empires have intersected for hundreds of years. And yet, Bosnia remains strangely absent from most European travel conversations. Entire valleys remain silent except for the sound of rushing water and wind moving through the trees. Located in the heart of the Balkans, Bosnia and Herzegovina sits at one of Europe's great cultural crossroads. The country covers just over 51,000 square kilometers, but within those borders lies staggering geographical diversity. Wild woodland blankets nearly half the land. Limestone crags rise sharply above glacial rivers of impossible turquoise. A skyline of elegant minarets, church spires, and historic clay rooftops share the exact same horizon. Bosnia is not a country that reveals itself immediately. Its beauty is quieter than that of Italy or Greece. More atmospheric, more intimate, it is a place that slowly unfolds through texture, memory, and feeling. For centuries, Bosnia stood at the frontier between worlds. The medieval Bosnian kingdom once ruled these mountains independently before the arrival of the Ottoman Empire in the 15th century transformed the region forever. Islamic architecture, Oriental bazaars, and new traditions spread across the valleys, creating one of the most culturally unique societies in Europe. Then came the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Grand boulevards, European facades, railways, and administrative buildings reshaped Bosnia's cities once again, layering Central European influence over an already deeply Ottoman landscape. Few places in Europe display history so visibly. But Bosnia's story is not only one of empires and history, it is also a story of endurance. The scars of the 1990s still remain visible across parts of the country. Buildings marked by war still stand in many towns. Yet to look only at the past is to miss the vibrant present. Because beyond those memories lies a country of profound warmth, resilience, and beauty. A place where hospitality remains intrinsically woven into daily life. Over the next hour, we will travel through Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is the country Europe forgot. And it may be one of the most unforgettable places left on the continent. Sarajevo. Nestled within a narrow valley and surrounded by forested mountains, Sarajevo appears almost hidden from the outside world. The Miljacka River winds quietly through the city center. Trams glide along broad avenues. Cafes spill onto sidewalks where locals linger over strong Bosnian coffee. For centuries, Sarajevo has stood at the meeting point of civilizations. East and West, Islam and Christianity, the Ottoman Empire and Central Europe have all left their mark here. In few places are those layers of history visible with such clarity. Every street tells a different chapter. Every corner offers a glimpse into a world where cultures have met, collided, and endured. The story of Sarajevo begins in Baš Čaršija, the city's historic old bazaar. Narrow cobbled lanes weave between traditional workshops where artisans continue centuries-old trades. Coppersmiths hammer intricate designs into handmade coffee sets. Bakers pull fresh pastries from stone ovens. The scent of grilled cevapi drifts through the air as visitors and locals gather beneath wooden shop fronts. At the center stands the Sibyl Fountain, one of Sarajevo's most recognizable landmarks. According to local legend, anyone who drinks from its waters is destined to return to the city one day. This is not an open-air museum. It remains a living neighborhood where history continues to be part of everyday life. Near the old bazaar stands the Gazi Husrevbeg Mosque, one of the most important Islamic monuments in the Balkans. Nearby rises the Sacred Heart Cathedral, center of the city's Catholic community. A short distance away stand the Old Orthodox Church and the Sarajevo Synagogue. Few cities in Europe bring together so many faiths within such a compact area. For centuries, Muslims, Catholics, Orthodox Christians, and Jews lived side by side here. Their histories have not always been easy, but together they shaped Sarajevo's unique identity. Sarajevo's diversity is not hidden behind museum displays. It continues to live in its streets, communities, and rhythms. In 1878, Sarajevo entered a new chapter. After centuries of Ottoman rule, Bosnia came under Austro-Hungarian administration. The city began to transform rapidly. Wide boulevards were placed sections of the old urban layout. Elegant government buildings appeared. European-style hotels, theaters, and administrative centers reshaped the skyline. Walking through Sarajevo today often feels like moving between two worlds. One moment, visitors are wandering through Ottoman courtyards and bustling bazaars. The next, they are standing beneath grand facades that would not look out of place in Vienna or Budapest. Rather than erasing the city's earlier identity, these changes added another layer to it. Sarajevo became a place where East and Central Europe coexisted physically within the same urban landscape. On the morning of June 28, 1914, Sarajevo became the center of global history. Near the Latin Bridge, a young Bosnian Serb named Gavrilo Princip assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. The event lasted only moments, yet its consequences would reshape the 20th century. The assassination triggered a chain of diplomatic crises that ultimately led to the outbreak of the First World War. Within weeks, Europe descended into conflict. Millions would lose their lives, empires would collapse, entire borders would be redrawn. Today, visitors crossing the Latin Bridge often find it difficult to imagine how such a quiet location became the setting for one of history's most consequential events. Fast forward 70 years, and Sarajevo once again captured the world's attention. In 1984, the city hosted the Winter Olympic Games, becoming the first socialist nation to organize the event. For many residents, it represented a golden era. New infrastructure transformed the city. Visitors arrived from across the globe. Sarajevo projected an image of confidence, diversity, and optimism. The surrounding mountains became world-famous ski venues, hotels filled with athletes and spectators. For a brief moment, Sarajevo stood as a symbol of international cooperation and possibility. Even today, traces of that period remain visible. Olympic facilities still stand in the hills above the city. Some have been restored, others remain abandoned, slowly reclaimed by nature. Then came the darkest chapter in the city's modern history. Between 1992 and 1996, Sarajevo endured the longest siege of a capital city in modern warfare. For nearly 4 years, residents lived under constant shelling and sniper fire. Basic necessities became scarce. Thousands lost their lives. Yet, amid unimaginable hardship, life continued. Musicians performed concerts in basements. Teachers held classes whenever possible. Families adapted, survived, and refused to surrender their humanity. Today, evidence of the conflict can still be found throughout the city. Buildings bear scars from shell impacts, but what visitors notice most is not tragedy, it is recovery. Sarajevo has survived empires, wars, occupations, and political upheaval. Through it all, it has remained a place of remarkable cultural richness and resilience. The mountains that surround the city offer sweeping views across the valley. From these heights, the layers of Sarajevo become visible all at once. Ottoman minarets rise beside Austro-Hungarian rooftops. Modern neighborhoods spread outward from the historic center. And yet Sarajevo is only the beginning of Bosnia's story. To the south lies a city connected by one of the most famous bridges in Europe, a place where beauty, tragedy, and reconciliation come together in stone above an emerald river. Completed in 1566 under the patronage of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, Stari Most was designed by Mimar Hayrudin, a student of the legendary Ottoman master Sinan. Its construction was considered, at the time, almost impossible. A single arch spanning nearly 30 meters of open air above the Neretva, with no visible means of support. According to legend, the architect prepared his own funeral before the scaffolding was removed. But the bridge held. For 4.5 centuries, it carried merchants, pilgrims, and entire generations across its pale stone spine. It became not merely the heart of a city, but the definition of one. It is a structure that does not simply cross a river, it binds one. A tradition stretching back hundreds of years still unfolds above the Neretva River. Young men from Mostar have long tested their courage by leaping from the bridge into the cold water below. The drop measures 24 meters. The river, even in summer, runs cold. Today, visitors gather on the stone parapets to watch. The divers pause, building silence, building anticipation before plunging into the rushing cold of the river far below. No other tradition in Herzegovina speaks quite so directly to the city's refusal to be still, its instinct always to leap. But the bridge's story is not only one of beauty. On the 9th of November 1993, during the Bosnian War, Stari Most was destroyed. After 4 centuries of survival, repeated shelling finally brought it crashing into the Neretva River below. Images of its collapse were broadcast across the world. The loss was felt far beyond. Stari Most had come to represent more than stone and mortar. It was a symbol of coexistence, of 2 communities, 2 faiths, 2 banks of the same river choosing to be connected. When it fell, something irreplaceable fell with it. Even today, many who were present speak of it in the language of grief. The story, however, did not end there. In the far northwest of Bosnia, near the Croatian border, lies one of the country's most pristine natural landscapes. Una National Park takes its name from the river that defines it, a waterway so clear that locals describe it as liquid emerald. Fed by underground springs and mountain runoff, the Una winds through dense forests and limestone canyons, its waters shifting between turquoise, deep green, and pale blue depending on depth and hour. Its centerpiece, Srebrenica Buk, unfolds not as a single waterfall, but as a wide cascade tumbling across layered limestone terraces. Standing nearby, the air carries constant cool mist and the low, unbroken roar of falling water. Tourism here remains modest. Those who arrive expecting crowds find instead a rare quietude. It is a place where nature does not merely exist, it endures, pristine and unhurried, as though the modern world simply never arrived. Returning south toward Herzegovina brings an entirely different quality of beauty. Hidden among dense subtropical vegetation, Kravica unfolds not as a single cascade, but as a wide curtain of water stretching more than 100 meters, multiple falls tumbling simultaneously into a broad emerald basin ringed by cliffs and forest. It does not fall so much as pour, spreading itself across the landscape with an almost theatrical generosity. The combination of warm climate, turquoise water, and lush greenery often startles first-time visitors. Many arrive expecting a country defined by mountains and medieval history. Few anticipate landscapes that feel borrowed from a more distant latitude. In summer, swimmers enter the water beneath the falls. The sound is immense, the cold is immediate. The beauty is by any measure complete. Few traditions reveal Bosnia's character more directly than coffee. Introduced during the Ottoman period, Bosnian coffee is prepared in a small copper jezva, brewed slowly, poured carefully, and accompanied by sugar cubes and a silence that feels intentional. The ceremony itself takes only minutes. The conversation that follows can last hours. In Bosnia, coffee is not a morning habit. It is an invitation to sit without purpose, to speak slowly, to allow time to lose its urgency. Cafes fill before noon and remain full until evening. Visitors linger, locals stay longer. Those accustomed to the tempo of larger European cities often find this atmosphere disorienting at first, then difficult to leave behind. It offers no productivity. It offers only presence. That, for many, is more than enough. What makes Bosnia singular is not the presence of one faith, but the coexistence of many. Across the country, mosques, Catholic churches, Orthodox monasteries, and synagogues stand within close proximity. In Sarajevo, the call to prayer and the sound of church bells are separated by a matter of moments. Religious festivals from different traditions share the same calendar. Communities maintain distinct identities while occupying the same streets, the same markets, the same river valleys. No other country in Europe packs so much theological history into so small a space. The diversity itself, however, is not merely a statistic. It is a lived reality, audible, visible, and ongoing. The result is a society shaped not by a single inheritance, but by generations of cooperation, exchange, and shared experience. Yet this same diversity has also made Bosnia, at times, a place of profound conflict. To understand the country fully, one must now enter the most difficult chapter of its modern story. For most of the 20th century, Bosnia and Herzegovina formed part of Yugoslavia, a multinational federation that bound together peoples of different ethnicities, languages, and faiths beneath a single state. Within Bosnia itself, this diversity was not a footnote, it was the texture of daily life. In 1992, following the dissolution of Yugoslavia, Bosnia declared independence. What followed was a conflict that would last nearly 4 years, claim more than 100,000 lives, and leave permanent marks on every city, valley, and community in the country. No city endured more than Sarajevo. For 1,425 days, from the spring of 1992 to the winter of 1996, the Bosnian capital endured a siege unlike anything Europe had witnessed in the modern era, the longest siege of a capital city in the history of modern warfare. Snipers positioned on the surrounding hillsides fired into the streets below. Artillery shells fell on apartment buildings, marketplaces, and hospital courtyards. Water and electricity were cut. Food became scarce. Yet Sarajevo did not cease to be itself. Teachers continued to hold classes. Musicians performed chamber concerts in darkened halls. On the day the National Library burned, citizens formed human chains to carry what books they could from the fire. The refusal to surrender not only survival, but culture, that instinct to remain fully human under conditions designed to dehumanize, became Sarajevo's most enduring act of resistance. In July 1995, in the final months of the war, the worst atrocity on European soil since the Second World War took place in the eastern town of Srebrenica. More than 8,000 Bosniak men and boys were killed following the fall of a United Nations designated safe area. The International Court of Justice later classified the events as genocide. Today, the Srebrenica Memorial Center stands at the site of the former battery factory used in those final days. Row upon row of white grave markers extend across a green hillside. The site does not speak loudly. It does not need to. The weight of that hillside is felt long after leaving it. In Sarajevo's pavements, if one looks closely, something unusual appears. Where artillery shells once struck the stone, small craters remain, filled with red resin and left in place. They are known as the Sarajevo Roses. No signage directs attention to them. No barriers separate them from the flow of foot traffic. Children walk across them on the way to school. They exist simply as markers, quiet, permanent, embedded in the life of the city rather than removed from it. It is one of the most considered acts of remembrance in modern urban history. In Mostar, the collapse of Stari Most in 1993 had shattered more than stone. For nearly a decade, the two halves of the city existed without their connection. Then in 2004, a rebuilt bridge opened above the Neretva River. The reconstruction was meticulous. The same pale limestone, Tenelius stone, quarried from the same hills as the original, was shaped by hand using techniques derived from 16th century construction records. On the day of its reopening, a diver leapt from the newly completed arch into the river below, exactly as divers had done for centuries before. The starry most did not return as a replica, it returned as a continuation. In a country that had endured so much, the reopening of a single bridge became something larger than architecture. It became proof, visible, crossable, standing above an emerald river that what is broken can, in time, be made whole. The war ended in November 1995 with the signing of the Dayton Agreement. The rebuilding that followed was neither swift nor simple. Yet today, a generation has grown to adulthood in a Bosnia defined not by the siege or the conflict, but by the country that emerged from them. Cities have been restored, cultural life has returned. Travelers arrive from across the world, drawn by landscapes and a heritage that the war years briefly obscured but never destroyed. Bosnia does not ask visitors to grieve on its behalf. It asks instead to be seen, fully, honestly, and without pity, as the complex, layered, and deeply human place it has always been. Most of Europe's great destinations have, over decades, been quietly reshaped. Old towns rebuilt for photography, cobbled streets cleared for the convenience of the arriving rather than the comfort of those who live there. History preserved behind glass, explained in 7 languages, and visited in the hour between coffee and the next scheduled stop. Bosnia and Herzegovina has not followed this path. Its old towns remain primarily lived in, not performed. Its markets still serve local needs. Its landscapes have not been zoned for comfort. The people who call it home have not reoriented their daily lives around the expectations of those passing through. It is not that Bosnia is unaware of what it offers. It is simply that it has not yet decided to become something other than itself. What a traveler finds here, then, is something increasingly rare. Silence still exists between mountain valleys. Hospitality is not a strategy but a habit of life, offered without agenda, received without transaction. Landscapes remain vast enough to feel genuinely surprising in an age when very little is left unmapped, unfound, or unvisited. The cities carry their full history on their surfaces, not as exhibition, but as daily life. The marks of the war remain alongside the minarets and the medieval fortresses and the roses pushed through market stalls in spring. Nothing has been hidden, nothing has been smoothed away. To travel through Bosnia is to move through a country that has endured a great deal and chosen, quietly and without ceremony, to continue. Bosnia and Herzegovina is not easy to summarize. It is a country where East and West have met for so long that the distinction has ceased to feel relevant. Where the call to prayer and the sound of church bells occupy the same still morning air. Where a rebuilt bridge above a pale river stands as the most precise definition of hope this continent has produced in a generation. It has been forgotten by the guidebooks, overlooked in the headlines, left largely to be itself. And that, in the end, may be exactly what makes it one of the last places in Europe where travel still feels like discovery. Not because it is hidden, but because it has remained itself.